Sent from Disneyland, history in our hand. So much to say about yesterday and the decades we have spanned. Postcards from the park, this journey will embark. See what has changed and what remains on Sent from Disneyland. Sent from Disneyland.
Welcome to the Sent from Disneyland podcast.
Here age relives fond memories of the past.
If it's your first time joining us, welcome. On this podcast, we'll take a journey into the past and explore Disneyland, Disneyland history, and more, with mementos, snapshots, souvenirs, and postcards sent from Disneyland, from 1955 to the present. Let's start by thanking my patrons from patreon.com. You can join in at any level to support the show and receive snail mail from my trips to Disneyland and from my desk, plus some sneak peeks and bonus content. Special thanks to Random Olive, the first patron to this podcast, and to the rest of the e-ticket patrons, Tania, Eric Daniels, Monica Seitz Vega, Scott Cagle, Russ Romano, Michael and Christina Cross, and Sheila Harry. C-ticket patrons Serious Inquiries Only, Debbie Weinstein, Jennifer Schneep, Angela Reynolds, Grace Coate, Patty Wolin, and Ben and Noel Bruning. B-ticket patron Joshua Bell, and to the A-ticket patrons Elise Sharp, Zealot Infinity, Alexis Robles, Angel DeBlock, and the Beyond the Railroad podcast. I am your host, your post-host Clocky, and today we have 2 postcards sent from Disneyland. The front of our first postcard has the Chicken of the Sea pirate ship. On the left, you can see the fence around the Mad Tea Party. On the back it reads, Fantasyland. Aboard the pirate ship in Fantasyland, guests enjoy the dinner of their choice, tuna of the Chicken of the Sea restaurant, and a glimpse of the wonders of this realm in Walt Disney's Magic Kingdom. It's postmarked October 5th, 1957, with a Los Angeles give enough through shared community chest, cancel, and 2 green 1-cent George Washington postage stamps. Scott number 1031. I assume they visited the park on Friday, October 4th, 1957, when park hours were from 10 a.m. to midnight. The weather was a high of 75 and a low of 53. Park attendance that day was 6,738. It's addressed to Norma Ann Dean of East Peoria, Illinois. It reads, Hi, gal. Well, how do you like that? Can't even spell the first word. This is where Jim and I ate dinner at Disneyland. We had a ball at... I didn't want to leave, but had to work to make more money to spend. Am writing letter. Thought you would like this card. Love, Juanita. Since today is the 57th anniversary of the Walt Disney animated feature, The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, I thought it'd be fun to delve into the history of this feature. Originally, Kenneth Grahame's novel, The Wind in the Willows, was going to be made into a feature-length animated movie. The rights of the 1908 book were acquired by Roy O. Disney in 1938. Initially, Walt was not interested in pursuing the story, but was convinced by James Bodrero, an artist at the studio, to start working on the project. Looking at Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnson's book, Disney Animation, The Illusion of Life, there's some early concept art of Mr. Toad which ended up being used in the character design for the movie. James also worked on modeling characters for Fantasia and was a story writer for Victory Through Air Power, Make Mine Music, and The Three Caballeros. Story meetings began in September of 1940, and animation for the project started as early as April of 1941. The production of the film was put on hold a few times due to the animator strike, concerns about quality of the film, and World War II. Because so much of the film had been completed, the studio began working on the project again with the idea of attaching it to other animated stories. This concept was used in other films in the 40s, including The Three Caballeros, Make Mine Music, Fun and Fancy Free, and Melody Time. This is a way of packaging smaller animated segments into a feature film. More changes were made in the mid-40s, and legend has it that one of the animators, Frank Thomas, returned to his desk after serving in World War II and continued animating the same sequence he had been working on before he left. Frank mentioned a story about working on this film in his book, Disney Animation, The Illusion of Life, that Roy Disney asked the animators to help curb Walt's spending, saying, You've got to work with Walt. He's got to stop spending so much money. Years later, Walt made the suggestion of the line for Mac Badger, saying, Something's got to be done about Toad. He's spending too much money. The film was put on hiatus again in 1946 due to layoffs, but was brought back to life 6 months later when it was going to be tied with the Washington Irving story, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. This movie was originally called Two Fabulous Characters. Most of the dialogue for the film was recorded in the early 1940s, and it was the task of a few of the animators to refit the animation from around 47 minutes down to around 25. Frank Thomas also noted that they tried to make it a longer feature by adding 10 to 15 minutes, but the story got soggy and slowed down the action of the storyline. Add some flair to your mail by checking out stamps at Enfield Post. You can explore different stamp options on our Etsy site, grab some great deals by following the EP Sunday sales on Instagram, or create something special and have her design a stamp array for your invitation or celebration. You can head over to enfieldpost.com and explore all the different vintage postage stamps you can use on your next card or letter. That's ENFIELDPOST on Instagram and enfieldpost.com for your wedding and vintage postage needs. Enfield Post is the official postage stamp sponsor of the Sent from Disneyland podcast. The front of our next postcard has Sleeping Beauty Castle with guests walking on the drawbridge. Pulling up to the castle is the Main Street fire engine filled with guests. If you look closely, you can see the front end of the omnibus and the top of the wishing well. On the back it reads, Sleeping Beauty Castle. Two worlds of excitement come together. Chugging horseless carriages take you on a nostalgic journey down Main Street, USA. Ahead is Sleeping Beauty Castle, gateway to Fantasyland, home of Snow White, Peter Pan, and many other fabulous Walt Disney characters. It's postmarked October 5th, 1972, with an Anaheim cancel and an 8-cent U.S. flag over the White House postage stamp. Scott number 1338G. I assume they visited the park on Thursday, October 5th, 1972, when park hours were from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. The weather was a high of 95 and a low of 56. It's addressed to Mrs. Lisa, Joanne, and Renee Bashaw of Kinney Lawn, New Jersey. It reads, Hi girls, Disneyland is beautiful, lots to see and do. I'm out here for a conference, only wish I had more free time to see everything. We'll see you all sometime in November. Love, Aunt Mary. The Legend of Sleepy Hollow had a much simpler production schedule. Animation started in 1947, and by 1948, Disney had hired Bing Crosby to narrate and provide vocals for the segment. The movie was renamed The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad and premiered on October 5, 1949. It was eventually split into two separate features. The Wind in the Willows was shown on the Disneyland television program in February of 1955. This also included the Reluctant Dragon short to fill the hour, and both stories were written by Kenneth Grahame. In October of the same year, the other half of the movie was shown on the Disneyland television show as The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, with a 14-minute animated prologue of the history of Washington Irving. The Mr. Toad section of the film was also shown in theaters in 1978, with the film Hot Lead and Cold Feet, under the title The Madcap Adventures of Mr. Toad. The movie Hot Lead and Cold Feet is advertised on the back of my 1978 summer Disneyland map. No mention of the attached Mr. Toad. The two stories would not be reunited until a home video release in the early 90s. I personally remember watching these movies separately on VHS or on the Disney Channel. Currently, you can watch The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad on Disney+. My incoming postcard is sponsored by the Art Throwdown. Art Throwdown, or ATD, is a craft hour on Instagram, starting at 9 p.m. Eastern or 6 Pacific. Art Throwdown is a wonderful community of artists who love to share their craft, from creating sticker postcards and coloring techniques to intricate paper cutting and unique crafting. It's always a treat to watch a show and occasionally get some one-of-a-kind postcards from the group. Each host brings something a little different to each show. I'll list some of the regular hosts, or you can follow Russ Romano 2021 on Instagram. The front of my incoming postcard has Mickey and Minnie celebrating with a lot of other characters for Tokyo Disney Resort's 35th Happiest Celebration. In the upper left is Cinderella and Cinderella Castle. On the upper right is Peter Pan, Wendy, and Tinkerbell flying out of a window. There's also a depiction of Duffy and Friends, Alice the Mad Hatter and the Dormouse, Woody and Buzz, and images of Tokyo Disney Sea. It's not postmarked, but was sent on September 14th, 2024, from the Redondo Beach area, with a Staghorn Coral Postcard Forever postage stamp, Scott number 5366. It reads, Hello, Clocky. Hope this finds you in good health. I love going to Disneyland. It really is a special place. I was a pass holder till COVID, and since then haven't been able to afford it. I went last June for Pride Night. A great time was had by me and my two friends. I'm queer and single. They are straight and in relationships. Happy post-crossing, Irene. Thank you so much for the postcard, Irene. I really enjoy getting Tokyo Disney Resort postcards because they're so incredible to look at, with so much detail and great colors. I've made it to a few after-hour events like Pride Night, but haven't made it specifically to Pride Night yet. I think it's great that they continue to offer Pride Night along with some of the different events they've offered through the year. I'm also excited to see what new characters or what rare characters they'll have out for different events. Thanks for listening to Sent from Disneyland. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and tell your friends. It would also help to leave a 5-star rating and comment on whatever podcast platform you use. If you'd like to support the show financially, please check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/sentfromdisneyland. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at sentfromdisneyland or my website, sentfromdisneyland.com. For questions and comments, send me a postcard addressed to Sent from Disneyland, P.O. Box 44, Hood, California, 95639. This podcast is not affiliated with Disney, the United States Postal Service, or any post office or Disney-related properties. Opinions expressed on this podcast belong to the host and guests of the Sent from Disneyland podcast. This podcast is produced and edited by Clocky McDowell, website designed by Misty McDowell, theme song was written and performed by Noah Sunday Lefkowitz. Take it away, Noah.